Narrating Ido Portal, Part 1. I am Abe Zuka. I'm an artist, a painter, and writer in downtown Phoenix. Check out my website at zukagallery.com. Like and subscribe to this channel. Always reading my new projects out loud and conversating about them. Some people hate this channel, other people like this channel. It doesn't really matter to me. I like reading. Every once in a while somebody pops on here who's interesting. So let's begin this Ido Portal, the movement guy, the unfinished body. The unfinished body, practice, hazard, and the refusal of mastery. The mastery has nothing to gain. The student has everything. There is no perfect squat. The safe method is useless method. Anti-mastery and perpetual apprenticeship. The end of mastery is the death of learning. Any practice that promises arrival betrays itself because life does not stabilize at an endpoint but proliferates through variation, decay, and surprise. To call oneself a master is to step out of curiosity and into defense, to guard a position instead of exploring a terrain. The student, by contrast, remains porous, metabolizing failure, injury, boredom, and wonder as fuel rather than as threats. To become better at oneself is not the same as becoming better at what one does. Skill can improve while the self stagnates. Technique can refine while perception atrophies. Practice that aims only at performance produces obedient specialists, while practice aimed at the self produces adaptive beings. Tools should serve this process like instruments, never crowned as doctrines or defended like identities. The joy of practice lives in incompletion. What remains unfinished continues to breathe. A practice that admits its impossibility stays alive, while achievable goals, once achieved, collapse into repetition or nostalgia. The healthiest aim is the one you cannot finish because it keeps you moving without the illusion of closure. The question of living in the investigative practice. Answer satisfies, questions transform. An answer closes a loop and offers comfort, while a question opens a field and demands participation. To live inside the question is to remain in practice, refusing verdicts that would prematurely stabilize the system. Solutions appear and disappear, but the question is the infrastructure that allows movement to continue. Education is not instruction but investigation. You cannot be told what your body is capable of. You must discover it through exposure, error, and time. Programs promise certainty because uncertainty is inconvenient to sell, but certainty produces misalignment when applied to singular bodies. True education unfolds slowly through observation, self-practice, and the willingness to revise one's own demands. Complexity is the honest teacher. Oversimplification feels good and works briefly. Complexity feels unsatisfying and works later. The first inspires compliance. The second invites responsibility. What cannot be reduced without loss is precisely what deserves sustained attention. Specificity and contextual truth. There is no universal movement, only contextual adequacy. A squat that builds strength may fail as evasion. A posture that heals one's body may injure another. Movement has no moral hierarchy independent of demand, structure, and intention. Fitness that ignores context becomes superstition dressed as science. Structure is not destiny, but it is not irrelevant. Bodies arrive with histories written into the bone, the fascia, and the scar tissue. To ignore these inscriptions is not egalitarian, but negligent. Practice must negotiate with what is present, not fantasize about what should have been narrated. General practices open doors, specific practices decide where you walk. Hanging, squatting, and spinal articulation widen the field of possibility. But they are not conclusions, they are invitations to explore compression, expansion, and transmission, not identities to defend. When general tools harden into dogma, they lose their adaptive power. Hazard, injury, and protective intelligence. Growth requires departure from homeostasis. Nothing evolves while remaining comfortable. Systems stabilize themselves until disturbed, and disturbance is the price of adaptation. A method that guarantees safety guarantees stagnation because it refuses the very conditions under which learning occurs. Yes, behind every myth there is some truth. Behind every myth is another myth that can lead to a greater interpretation of reality. I don't really care too much for truth. I just care for the new language to unfold. Small injuries are tuitions, not failure. Minor tweaks teach calibration, attention, and restraint in ways no instruction can. By passing through manageable breakdowns, the body builds a protective intelligence that prevents catastrophic collapse later. Avoiding all injury is not resilience, it is deferred fragility. Bulletproofing is earned through exposure, not insulation. Protection emerges from negotiating chaos, not from avoiding it. Just as play teaches children how to fall, controlled hazard teaches adults how to recover. The goal is not recklessness, but informed risk. Hazard approach with awareness rather than fear. Curiosity, breath, and long-haul practice. Curiosity is the missing muscle of modern training. When information becomes instant, effort evaporates. And with it, the value we once placed on knowledge. What is hunted is remembered, what is downloaded is forgotten. The New Language, Not Truth, 1984. Curiosity sustains practice by turning difficulty into attraction rather than obstacle. Breadth precedes depth, and depth must be re-earned. Wide exposure tests what you actually have before specialization hides your deficits. Novel scenarios reveal capacity more honestly than rehearsed patterns. Only after this exposure does a specialization become meaningful rather than compensatory. Most teachings are wrong and still useful. Practices work long because they are understood, and many truths are provisional rather than permanent. What matters is not purity, but feedback over time. The wet test of reality rather than the cleanliness of theory. Progress belongs to those willing to revise themselves publicly. These axioms do not offer protocols, only directions. They ask you to trade certainty for participation, safety for intelligence, and mastery for curiosity. If they work, it will not be because they are correct, but because they keep you practicing. These axioms do not offer protocols, only directions. They ask you to trade certainty for participation, safety for intelligence, and mastery for curiosity. If they work, it will not be because they are correct, but because they keep you practicing. Usefully wrong maps, models, intentions, and the invisible content of practice. All models are wrong, but some are useful. The map is not the territory. It worked even when it was wrong. Error and temporal truth. Wrongness is always measured from a future you have not yet reached. To say a method was wrong is to speak from the vantage point of the later understanding, not from the conditions under which it operated. At the time of use, it was not wrong in itself, it was incompetent. At the time of use, it was not wrong itself, it was incomplete, provisional, and embedded in a wider ecology of intention, effort, and attention. Many practices succeed not because they are correct, but because other forces carry them forward, despite their theoretical poverty. Bodies adapt before minds understand, and results often appear long before reasons can be articulated. This temporal gap tempts people to mythologize tools, mistaking coincidence for causality, and freezing living processes into doctrines. The honest practitioner admits that something worked without fully knowing why, and keeps the door open for deeper revision. Models, maps, and necessary fictions, every model is a lie told for a purpose. No abstraction can capture reality without loss, because reality exceeds representation at every scale. A model learns its keep not by being true, but by being useful within a specific context and duration. When its usefulness expires, clinging to it becomes superstition disguised as rigor. Mistaking the map for the territory is the original training of injury. Programs, challenges, and protocols are navigational aids, not destinations. They exist to move attention, provoke adaptation, and open inquiry. When treated as ends in themselves, they harden into obstacles that prevent further learning. A good model invites departure from itself. The highest function of a framework is to make itself obsolete by sharpening perception. If a system cannot be discarded without panic, it has already failed as an educational tool. What you do matters less than how and why you do it. Intention, attention, and emotional posture modulate outcomes as powerfully as mechanics. Two people can perform the same movement and adapt it in opposite directions because their internal organization differs. Ignoring these invisible variables reduces practice to cargo cult imitation. Technique without orientation is noise. A method divorced from purpose becomes empty. The same exercise can heal, injure, or stagnate depending on the question it is answering. Without a living why, even the best tools decay into ritual. Protocols are doors, not cures. A squat challenge, a hanging challenge, or any other structured offering is an invitation to investigate, not a guarantee of transformation. Real change requires education, time, and self-confrontation, none of which can be compressed into a trick. When a protocol promises salvation, it is already lying. Serious problems resist clever hacks. Complex conditions, whether psychological, physical, or existential, do not resolve through novelty supplements or fashionable routines. Reductionism flatters the ego of the helper while abandoning the depth of the problem. Honest practice names its limits before advertising its benefits. Strength, mobility, and longevity. There is no such thing as strength in general. Strength only exists in relation to tasks, angles, environments, and constraints. To call someone strong without specifying context is to say nothing at all. Wide testing reveals that every strength hides a corresponding weakness elsewhere. Mobility can coexist with deep rigidity. Large, impressive ranges may conceal missing micro-movements and dead zones. What appears fluid from a distance may feel brittle under touch of pressure. Apparent openness often masks internal fixation. Longevity is not bodybuilding with better marketing. Cultural fantasies confuse muscle mass metrics and visual youth with durable life. Long-lived movers often lack the number that dominated contemporary discourse, yet display coherence, adaptability, and ease. Health metrics are tools, not identities. Gym success rarely predicts field success. Excellence under controlled conditions does not guarantee effectiveness in chaotic environments. Many elite performers succeed in spite of their training methods, not because of them. Transfer must be demonstrated, not assumed. General preparation widens the base, but performance emerges from addressing weak links relative to a concrete aim. When strength training, dancing, rhythm, or play are introduced, they must answer a real need, not a trend. Improvements begin where self-image collapses. Real investigation exposes deficits the ego would rather ignore. Many people want improvement in theory, but resist the discomfort required in practice. This refusal is not a moral failure, only a choice, but its limits what can be achieved. Novelty is not meaningful when oriented. Exploration without direction is distraction. Exploration guided by diagnosis is precision. What appears random from the outside is often a sequence of targeted probes aimed at revealing organizational gaps. Integration, not accumulation, is the measure of seriousness. Capacity is organizational before it is muscular. Coordination, rhythm, pressure management, and structural relationships govern what strength can express. Muscles amplify patterns that already exist. They do not correct dysfunctional organization. Change the container, and many demands on force disappear. What can change should be addressed before what cannot. Bones retain shape, relationships around them do not. Altering breathing, ribcage organization, and internal movement can resolve problems of brute strength cannot touch. Intelligence and training means acting on the most malleable variable first. Teaching requires containers, learning requires discarding them. Exercises, scenarios, and demonstrations are cups carrying invisible content. When students fixate on the cup, they miss the water entirely. The container must be used when abandoned, or it becomes an idol. Attention is mutilated and manipulated so that truth can be delivered. Spectacles draws the eyes, but substances change the system. The performer borrows attention in order to redirect it towards principles that cannot be seen directly. Confusing the hook for the lesson is the most common pedagogical failure. There is no stable self, only a temporary organized one. Sensation, emotion, perception, and even organs adapt under pressure and practice. Underused and overused degrade different layers of the system, but both are reversible through intelligent exposure. Everything that participates in experience can be trained. Practice is the art of reorganizing over time. True adaptation unfolds slowly across layers, resisting final definitions. To practice is not to perfect, but to remain available to change again and again without mistaking today's solution for tomorrow's truth. True adaptation unfolds slowly across layers, resisting final definitions. To practice is not to perfect, but to remain available to exchange and change again and again without mistaking today's solution for tomorrow's truths.